Once upon a time, in the ancient and wise book, a new story begins, a tale full of lessons and wonders for those who listen. In the heart of old Germany, where forests whispered to the wind, a queen longed for a child. One winter morning, as she sewed by her snow-covered window, a prick of her needle drew a single drop of blood. She wished for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Her wish was granted, but joy turned to sorrow when the queen fell ill. She passed away shortly after giving birth to Snow White, leaving the kingdom mourning yet marveling at the beauty of the newborn princess. Time passed, and the king, seeking companionship, married again. The new queen was breathtakingly beautiful, but possessed a heart carved from envy and cold ambition, relying on her enchanted mirror for reassurance. Every morning she would ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And each time the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all," feeding her pride. As Snow White grew, her innocence and beauty blossomed. She wandered through the castle gardens, feeding birds and bringing joy to those she met, unaware of the jealousy growing in the queen's heart. One fateful morning, the queen questioned her mirror again. But this time the mirror answered, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." The queen's envy ignited into fury. Determined to rid herself of her rival, the queen summoned a loyal huntsman, commanding him to take Snow White deep into the forest and end her life. The huntsman led Snow White into the thick woods, but her gentle heart and tearful innocence shattered his resolve. He released her, urging her to flee far away and never return to the castle. Snow White ran through the twisting woodland paths, frightened by the shadows and sounds. Yet the forest, ancient and wise, seemed to guide her steps toward safety. Exhausted, she discovered a tiny cottage nestled among towering pines. She knocked timidly, but no one answered, so she stepped inside, finding everything small, tidy, and arranged in groups of 7. Hungry and tired, she ate a little food from each plate and curled up on one of the little beds, drifting into a peaceful sleep as night wrapped the forest in silence. When the owners returned, 7 dwarfs with lanterns and pickaxes, they found their home unexpectedly disturbed. Confused, they followed the soft breathing to the bedrooms. Seeing Snow White sleeping, they marveled at her angelic presence. When she awoke, she shyly explained her story, winning their compassion and protection. The dwarfs offered her shelter under one condition. She must stay inside when they left for work and never open the door to strangers. Grateful, Snow White agreed. Meanwhile, the queen again asked her mirror, "Who is the fairest of them all?" It replied, "Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarfs in the forest." Enraged, she vowed to eliminate Snow White herself. Disguising herself as a peddler woman, she ventured into the forest and reached the dwarf's cottage. She tricked Snow White with a cursed lace, tightening it until the girl collapsed. When the dwarfs returned, they revived Snow White by cutting the lace. Realizing the queen was after her, they warned her to trust no one. The queen, believing Snow White dead, asked the mirror again and was furious to learn the truth. She prepared a second disguise, an old woman with a poisoned comb. When she arrived at the cottage, she persuaded Snow White to try the beautiful comb. As soon as it touched her hair, Snow White collapsed once more. The dwarfs hurried home again and removed the comb, saving her life. Their worry grew, but Snow White, still kind-hearted, struggled to believe such darkness existed. The queen, relentless in her jealousy, crafted her most wicked plan yet, a poisoned apple, shiny red and deadly. Disguised again, she set out to finish what she had begun. Snow White, tempted by the apple's beauty, hesitated, but the queen insisted it was safe by taking a bite from the unpoisoned half, tricking her. Snow White bit the poisoned side and fell instantly into a deep, lifeless sleep. The dwarfs returned to a heartbreaking sight. They could not revive her, and in their grief, they built a glass coffin so her beauty would not fade. Seasons passed as the dwarfs guarded her, morning, day, and night. Birds, forest creatures, and even the wind carried sorrow through the woodland. One day, a prince traveling through the forest saw the coffin and was captivated by Snow White's pure beauty and gentle presence even in sleep. The dwarfs told him her story with heavy hearts. Moved deeply, the prince asked permission to take the coffin to his palace, determined to honor her forever. As his servants lifted the coffin, they stumbled on a root, jolting Snow White. A piece of the poisoned apple slipped from her throat, breaking the spell. Snow White opened her eyes, confused but alive. The prince, overwhelmed with joy, explained what had happened, and gratitude filled her heart. The dwarfs celebrated her return, their tears turning to laughter as birds circled and sang in delight. The prince invited Snow White to his kingdom, offering her a place where she would be cherished and protected, far from the queen's reach. Snow White agreed, knowing she would always remember the dwarfs who had sheltered and saved her. News of Snow White's survival reached the queen through her mirror, which once again answered, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." Her fury consumed her. In her rage, the queen fled into the mountains, where a storm raged fiercely. Lightning shattered the cliff on which she stood. The queen fell, defeated by her own wickedness, while the storm swept away all traces of her cruelty. Snow White and the prince traveled safely to his kingdom, where she was welcomed with open arms. The dwarfs visited often, bringing gifts from the forest and celebrating the bond that had formed between them. Snow White grew wiser, understanding the delicate balance between kindness and caution, bravery and innocence. The prince and Snow White held a grand celebration, inviting the entire kingdom to rejoice in hope restored. Snow White looked to the horizon, grateful for every kindness that had saved her, determined to rule with compassion, fairness, and strength. And so Snow White's tale, born of sorrow and saved by love, reminds us that goodness, though tested, always finds a way to shine again. And so this tale comes to an end, but its wisdom and lessons remain, shining as a light to guide us in life.